Welcome to the Explainer. Grab your coat, because today we're heading up into the misty, pine-scented hills of Darjeeling. We're jumping straight into the very first adventure of India's most brilliant detective, Feluda, brought to life by the legendary Satyajit Ray. So, settle in, because if you love a classic, locked-room-style mystery with an absolute genius at the center of it, you're in for a seriously thrilling ride.
Picture this. You're on a serene, picturesque holiday. You taking in the crisp mountain air of the scenic Mall Road. But just beneath that idyllic surface, something sinister is brewing. We have to ask ourselves, why would anyone target a harmless old man who seemingly doesn't have an enemy in the world? Let's unravel this mystery together.
We actually experience this whole unfolding mystery through the eyes of Topshe, a 13-and-a-half-year-old kid who absolutely idolizes his older cousin. He watches in sheer awe as his 27-year-old cousin, Ghoshal, who we all know and love as Feluda, takes on his very first major case. It's this exact investigative partnership that completely changed the landscape of Indian detective fiction. We get a front-row seat to a razor-sharp intellect at work.
Okay, let's set the scene and look at the thread itself.
First, you need to meet Rajen Babu. He's this incredibly amiable, cheerful guy with silver hair who spends his days just admiring Tibetan antiques, handing out lemon drops to local kids, and relaxing on the mall. He's a philanthropist, always helping out the poor in the local slums. Simply put, he's a gentle soul. He seems completely incapable of attracting danger or hiding some kind of dark secret. But out of nowhere, that peace is completely shattered. Rajen Babu stumbles onto the mall, panting, completely pale, and visibly shaken to his core. He collapses onto a bench, clutching a piece of folded blue paper in his trembling hands, and says, "Something incredible has happened." For a guy this gentle to be that terrified, you know the threat has to be incredibly serious.
Which brings us to the actual evidence, the infamous cutout letter.
Now, Feluda takes one look at this thing and his eyes miss absolutely nothing. He points out the severed edges of the paper. The sender meticulously sliced the words out using a sharp blade, not scissors. And he notices that every single word comes from a completely different printed source, with totally different fonts and paper qualities. It's your classic terrifying ransom-style note, pasted onto blue paper to guarantee the sender's handwriting and their identity stays totally hidden. It is cold, it's calculated, and it is highly deliberate.
So, who actually did it? Let's line up our roster of suspects.
The suspects form a mental caseboard in Feluda's mind. First, there's Tinkori Babu, the new tenant who just arrived in town. Then you've got Abani Ghoshal, this incredibly greedy antique dealer. We also have Prabir Majumdar, the estranged son lurking around in the shadows after being banished. And finally, Dr. Phony Mithra, the seemingly innocent doctor who just happens to leave behind mysterious cigarette stubs. The mastermind is definitely hiding in plain sight.
Let's look at Tinkori Babu a little closer, because this guy is fascinating. He actually writes wildly popular detective novels under the pen name Guptachar, which literally translates to spy or secret agent. And in a massive twist of irony, he enthusiastically steps in to help Feluda analyze the clues on the threatening letter. Having a professional mystery writer inserting himself into a real-life crime scene, it adds such a cool meta layer of intrigue to the whole investigation.
But you can't ignore the others, because they have deep, tangible motives. Ghoshal is practically drooling over the idea of frightening Rajen Babu into staying locked up at home, just so he can buy up all the lucrative local antiques without any competition. And over at the Mount Everest Hotel, hiding in the shadows, is Prabir, the estranged son who stole money from his father years ago. It really sets up this classic battle of sheer greed versus family betrayal.
And then, things go from bad to worse really fast.
The psychological warfare suddenly escalates into a full-blown home invasion. Imagine this. It's the dead of night, and a shadowy figure breaks into Rajen Babu's bedroom. And what are they wearing? A completely ordinary, locally bought Darjeeling mask. It's an eerie, exact replica of the masks Rajen Babu so affectionately collects. The poor guy is left petrified, trembling in his bed. Taking a man's beloved hobby and twisting it into a tool of terror, that is a remarkably cruel move.
This massive escalation forces Tinkori Babu to step up and insist on immediate police protection for Rajen Babu. He says, look, we can't call this a joke anymore. It's deeply dangerous. But here's the best part. While panic ensues and the cops are called in to patrol the grounds, young Feluda is icy calm. He's just quietly and methodically compiling his evidence in the background.
All right, it is time for the big reveal. Let's unmask the culprit.
With all these suspects and the danger escalating, we really have to figure out who was the actual mastermind behind this highly theatrical plot. Was it the greedy dealer, the bitter son, or someone else entirely? The net is officially drawing closed.
Feluda connects the dots with just undeniable precision. Check this out. First, the cutout letter required access to huge amounts of different printed materials, exactly the kind of stuff a writer might hoard. Second, Feluda noticed a very specific suspect walking with a sudden limp the morning after that terrifying break-in. And third, he deduces that the limp was caused by a panic jump straight out of Rajen Babu's ground floor window into the dark. All these clues point to exactly one person.
Boom! The shocking twist reveals that the mastermind is none other than Tinkori Babu, the famous mystery writer, the guy who offered to help solve the case, the very man who insisted on calling the cops. He orchestrated the entire terrifying plot himself. He literally used his intimate knowledge of detective fiction to craft a perfect real-life crime, betraying the very man he was living with.
But hang on a second, the case isn't totally closed, because even the brilliant Feluda is stumped by one haunting question. Why? Feluda points out that Tinkori Babu genuinely seemed to respect the old man. There was no obvious financial gain, no stolen artifacts, so why put a gentle old man through such elaborate psychological torture? Well, as readers of the original 1965 Sandesh magazine discovered, the final piece of this puzzle wasn't actually found by deduction. It was delivered by the postman. It arrives via a confession letter with a Darjeeling postmark, sent by Tinkori Babu himself as he flees the city. In it, he explains the dark shadow of the past that drove his theatrical vengeance.
And so we're going to leave you with one final, lingering mystery to chew on. What dark, unresolved secret from the past could possibly compel a brilliant writer to do something like this? What ancient wrong was he trying to right? Well, that's a thrilling secret you'll only discover by diving into the pages of Satyajit Ray's original masterpiece yourself. Thanks for stepping into the mist with us.